Hello, here's a quick video on a patch I made the other day, and it's not really specifically an ambient drone technique. You can use this for all kinds of sounds. I just thought it sounded nice with a load of reverb on it. So I've got a few modules here. I've got a MIDI CV just to control things from the keyboard, and I've got some white noise going into a VCA with a short envelope. And I'm just going to bring that right down to make a kind of click. Then I'm going to grab a module called Wallinder, and I'll just move that output there. And I'm going to take the noise output, put that into the input, and also connect the volt per octave. And now we've got a pitch. So this is basically a tuned delay, which is a kind of physical modelling or car plus strong synthesis, if you want to call it that. And that's quite pleasant, but I'm going to grab another resonator, which I've got up here. So I'll just zoom out a bit, 1 second. And this is a module called Anuli. And it's basically rings, but it's polyphonic. So what I'm going to do now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the output from Anuli instead, and then connect the output from there into here. So I'm basically connecting a resonator into another resonator. And as you can hear, that's a bit more interesting. But there's one vital step I've forgotten, actually. And this is kind of the whole basis of how this works. I always mess something up when I do a tutorial. So I'm going to grab a VCA mix. And I'm using this because it's polyphonic. So the noise input, I'm actually going to put into the mixer first. And then move that into there. And why am I using a mixer? And the reason is, I'm just going to take that channel right down. I'm going to take another output back into an input and make feedback. So that's the basic sound when you start. And then if I increase this channel here, it's going to start feeding back. And that sounds fairly horrible. So the next step is, I'll just move those across a bit. I'm going to get a filter. And I'm just going to use the standard VCV one, VCF. And I'm just going to filter the feedback return loop and bring that down a bit. That's going to act as a kind of dampener and just turn it down for a second. And let's get an octave. And I'll put that into there. And then I also need to connect the volt per octave on the second resonator. And as you can tell, that sounds slightly better. So that's on the sympathetic strings model. And I'm now going to get another copy of this. I've tuned these a bit earlier, by the way, because they can be slightly pitchy. And this is the Modal resonator, which is the kind of default model. So again, I need to connect the volt per octave and then the noise source from the VCA. And I'll just move that output across so you can hear this one. And I'm modulating a few things there as well, the position and a bit of vibrato on the frequency input. I think that needs a bit more damping. And then let's try some feedback again through there. You have to be a bit careful with this. Okay, so there you go. That's sounding fairly horrible so far. I'll just bring that down a bit. Let's zoom out a bit. So I've got a module here that I'm going to use to just change the cutoff slightly and modulate that as well. That's just going to give you some more harmonics. And then let's try some feedback again through there. You have to be a bit careful with this. we just turn that up. I think that needs to go back up an octave actually. There you go. I'll just turn that down again because that's sounding fairly horrible. But the next step is I want to mix these two copies of Anuli together. So if I just zoom in again a bit, I'm going to grab a module called, I've forgotten what it's called actually, but it's called X-Fade by Bog Audio. This is basically like a crossfader. So if I take one of the outputs from the first Anuli, that can go in A, then the second Anuli can go into B, and then I think I'll leave that in the middle actually, and then volt Modal is bipolar, so that's going to modulate it either side of 0. Then I'm also going to get a Bog Audio pan module, and then this will modulate the different channels in the stereo field. So if I take the mix input into there, then I want to get an LFO to modulate this. That needs to be bipolar. And to make it polyphonic, I'm just going to stick the output from Polycon into there, which is just going to stick it onto more than one channel. And then you have to put that all the way to the left or right. Not sure how that works, but that's how it does it. And let's just stick that in channel 14, for example. Okay, so there's quite a lot of reverb on that channel. So that's a bit more of an ambient sound already. All we need to do next is we need to turn the feedback back up, and then we need to give it some pitch information. So what I'll do is I'll just grab the Bog Audio LFO, and I need to turn the scale right down. Just zoom back in a bit so you can see this. Because we don't want the full range of 10 octaves, because that will sound horrible. So if I take that down to 16% and then get a quantizer, I want quantum, this one. And I'll just stick a few notes in there, just a few notes of C minor. And then I'm going to take the stepped output, which is basically sample and hold. I want that on slow mode. I'll take it right down. And then this octave module here, instead of that coming from the MIDI CV, it's going to come from here instead. But we've still got the gate patched in, and we'll just use that to start it off. And then increase the feedback. And then you should get some different notes coming through. There you go. From Quantum. And then that's mixing between the two different resonators and then panning it on the different stereo channels. So that's the basis of the sound, and of course the next step is to smash this through Supermassive, which I've got running up here, and I've got quite a lot of delay and warp. I've got over a second of delay. So if I take this and put that into Supermassive and this host effects module, and there you go, that's your ambient drone. Let's just turn this up a tiny bit. I've got some clouds as a send effect as well, and some delay. Just loads of effects. You can't have too many effects for ambient drone. And you can hear just slowly there some different notes coming through. And then you just let that go on for about 10 minutes. And there you go, easy ambient drone. Like I said, you can use this for loads of other stuff. So I'm planning a longer tutorial on the kind of physical modelling idea. And there's loads of kind of textural pads and other stuff you can make with this. But that's the basis of the patch I did the other day, and it's dead simple really. So it's just a couple of annealing resonators with another resonator as the input, and then loads of supermassive. And there you go. Thanks for watching. Cheers.